my comments are now being pre-recorded. I speak to you to raise a very, very important matter. On Monday in the Parliament, where we were debating the taking note of the presidential statement pertaining to the reasons for announcing and proclaiming a state of emergency, the Prime Minister, in his winding up of that debate, made some statements that were totally misleading, and in fact, as local parlance would say, they were lies, total falsehoods. The Prime Minister raised the fact that the vigils that were being held for Andrea Barrett were thousands of persons night after night gathering, and these gatherings caused the increase in COVID infections and deaths. The Prime Minister also said that the opposition organized these vigils. He further said the vigils were organized to exploit the death of Andrea Barrett. He further said that the opposition paid for the vigils, and he said that the opposition provided transport for persons to attend these vigils. Now, the Prime Minister knew then, or he ought to have known, as I will show, he ought to have known that those statements were falsehoods, they were lies, that he was misrepresenting and misleading the Parliament. The Prime Minister knew and ought to have known that the low and negligible numbers of infections at the end of February, beginning of March, would indicate that the candlelight vigils were not the cause for the spikes. Yet, the Prime Minister chose to mislead the House by blaming the vigils. And how would he have known? He would have known because he attended all these health briefings where the various experts gave the statistics, carried on several days of the week. These press briefings were held, and the Prime Minister was present, and he would have heard, he would have seen. Secondly, as head of cabinet, he would also have been privy to the statistics. The Prime Minister knew or ought to have known that the vigils being a cause for the increase and so on, that could not have been, because the data does not read out or bear out anything he said. And as I pointed out, Prime Minister was privy to the data all along, having attended the press briefings. Now, if that were true, why would the Prime Minister then, knowing that these vigils was a cause of the spiking, why would he have then encouraged people for a mass movement to go to Tobago over Easter? Prime Minister invited people, come to Tobago. Tobago is open for business, come. And his minister said that 50,000 people traveled between Trinidad and Tobago during that Easter time. So I'm saying the Prime Minister deliberately misled the House, and that the fact that the Prime Minister has personal knowledge of the data and the facts and so on, that he knew or ought to have known, he was misleading the House. As it relates to statements attributed to members of the opposition who organized and or paid and or provided transport to attend, that claim is totally false. And you know, when the member of Parliament for Barataria Sanwan rose on Standing Order 48.6, that the Prime Minister was imputed improper motives on the part of the opposition, the Prime Minister did not withdraw it. He said you could shout how much you want. And he went on to repeat the same erroneous statements. The Prime Minister was the last speaker on this debate, and therefore the opposition would have had no other opportunity to intervene or to give the lie to the statements that the Prime Minister had made. So the opposition could not, like in the normal course of a debate, opposition had no opportunity to come to rebut or to correct the statements.
We apologize for that. Good afternoon. Hello. We apologize for that technical issue there. Our technicians are currently looking into it. We will return to it when that issue has been solved so we can hear the announcement of the Leader of Opposition. In the meanwhile, we have Dr. Tim Gopi Singh, who will be also presenting on the COVID crisis. Dr. Gopi Singh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Megu, Honorable Political Leader, Leader of the Opposition, members of the media, and citizens viewing and listening to this communication this evening from the opposition. We apologize for the break in transmission, but as the political leader indicated, I am on Zoom. Just a while ago this afternoon, I received in my mailbox through WhatsApp a letter written by the heads of department of Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex, dated 25th May 2021, to members of the board of the North Central Regional Health Authority, and the members of the board are Mr. Steve Delas, Mr. Elvin Edwards, Mr. Randolph Clouden, Mrs. Yvonne Bullen-Smith, Mrs. Marie Ayongchi, Mr. Stuart Smith, Dr. Maria Bartholomew, Dr. Keith Clifford, Ms. Anita Sohan, Ms. Kimoy Thomas, and Mr. Kathleen Graham. And it reads as follows: Dear board member, we are writing to express our concern regarding recent events regarding our colleagues at the Couva General Hospital, and to request urgent action be taken to address these issues. And they go on to give the background. On Wednesday, 19th May 2021, the sudden and unprecedented decision was taken by the North Central Regional Health Authority, in brackets the region, to remove 4 senior physicians from the position at the Couva Hospital and reassign them to various other institutions. When the region was approached about the curious timing and unusual manner of this reassignment, the response was twofold. The CEO of the NCRHA, in a news interview on Thursday, 20th May 2021, and the NCRHA via a press release dated Thursday, May 19, 2021, both took the position that the removal was rather a rotation requested by the then Chief of Staff at Couva Hospital, Dr. Don Martin. The letter goes on 21st May 2021, Dr. Martin unequivocally refuted this claim during an interview with the Trinidad Express, and instead noted that it was critical that the existing team remain in place. A copy of this news report is attached here too for your ease of reference. The CEO of NCRHA, in another interview, then attempted to clarify the region's statement, but significant and disconcerting discordance still persists between the two narratives. The 4 doctors who have been rotated out comprise Dr. Don Martin, Dr. A. Macomb, and Dr. K. Kernahan, the 3 most senior doctors at the institution, and Dr. S. Mohammed, the only pulmonologist. We have taken the decisions to reach out to the board as we believe this is an issue of singular importance. Firstly, it involves the removal of the most experienced physicians in our country in the care of patients with COVID-19 at a time when their services are most desperately needed. This was among the issues identified by Dr. Martin in the interview already referenced. This current wave has been acknowledged by the Ministry of Health as our worst to date, and our nation is under a state of emergency. We find it concerning in the extreme that the NCRHA has taken the decision to remove these physicians at this time. The other point of concern refers to the circumstances and process of the action taken. Why were these doctors removed? Were their preferences taken into consideration? The wider appearance, including the inconsistent and confusing explanations proffered by the region, suggests that these physicians were removed without clear or any justification against their will and with no thought as to the adverse impact on the wider public. The NCRHA and Dr. Don Martin's positions are clearly contradictory. This unfortunate removal of the 4 senior physicians has already attracted wider adverse public comment. It has been the subject of criticism from a current Member of Parliament as well as by the Trinidad and Tobago Medical Association and the Trinidad and Tobago Registered Nurses Association. The criticism of the letter to medical associations were given publicly and reported in the Trinidad Express of 22nd May 2021. A copy of this news report is also attached for your ease of reference. The letter goes on, given the impact of this decision, not only in the NCRHA but on our entire country, it would be reckless not to pursue an independent assessment of why and how this action was conducted. We owe it to the physicians who are nothing short of national heroes, and we owe it to every citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. We are aware that this issue has become heavily publicized. As consultants and heads of departments working in the NCRHA, we are not in the habit of engaging in matters that do not directly impact our patient care. We must make this point that destabilizing the delivery of healthcare in patients with COVID-19 has the potential to affect all our patients and therefore is of direct relevance and extreme importance. Furthermore, in our review of the information available to the public, we are quite concerned about the treatment of our colleagues and the possibility of defining a new status quo. Is this how we ourselves can expect to be treated by the region in the future? In light of the above, we are insisting on the following. 1, that the board take immediate action to conduct an independent and transparent inquiry into why these physicians were removed and why the action was conducted in such a curious and undesirable manner. If wrongdoing is identified, a clear accounting delivered to the individuals responsible. 2, an apology to the physicians who were removed and an offer for immediate reinstatement as to reduce any adverse impact upon patient care. 3, clear feedback from the region as to how it intends to engage with medical staff moving forward with reassurance that this sort of episode will not be repeated. As medical professionals, we continue to act in what we consider to be the best interest of providing public health care at a fraught and difficult time in our nation. We write this letter to the members of the board in the belief that they, as fiduciaries of the region, share these values and will thus be motivated to investigate what appears to be a very serious breach of the region's responsibility to prioritize patient care and secure the wider public interests. We look forward to your urgent action and to any dialogue which may be desirable, and hope that we can look forward to the urgent correction of what appears to be a very serious default. Enclosed are the letters from the Trinidad Express, 21st May 2021, the reports. Don't use me as a scapegoat, medical chief of staff on rotation of doctors in Cougar Hospital. And the second newspaper publication from Trinidad Express, 22nd May 21, move to rotate docs on frontline, demoralizing. And it is signed, yours respectfully, Dr. Farid Ali, Acting Head of Cardiovascular Services, Dr. Nazim Boris Mohammed, Acting Head of Medicine, Dr. Barbara Rampasad, Head of Pediatric Surgery and Neurosurgery, Dr. Marion Sinath, Head of General Surgery, Dr. Rihanna Sunarayan, Head of Anesthesia and Intensive Care, Dr. Robbie Rampasad, Head of Radiology, Acting, Professor A.V.C. Rao, Head of Diagnostic Laboratory Services, Dr. Camille Green, Head of Department Pediatric Medicine, Dr. Curtis Yongpong, Head of Department Specialty Surgery, and Dr. Sushil Devara Shetty, Head of Department of PICU, and Dr. Parmanan Maraj, former Head of Department Radiology, Consultant Radiologist. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, I read this letter to indicate the difficulties occurring at the major institution providing health care to our very ill patients and those in the ICU units, and also those in tents around the hospitals. This is a very serious matter, and these heads of departments and top consultants at the Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex are seeking a meeting with the board of the Regional Health Authority and to discuss this matter and to have a determination on the way forward. While this is going on, these doctors I wear my medical hat this afternoon, and also as a COVID survivor. Now, when doctors are demotivated, when they are at the end of unpleasant type of working environment, their ability to work conscientiously is relatively diminished to a certain extent. They want an environment where they want to be, they must be move forward. They must move forward in a nice, and it was described they were a team. So why interfere? And this comes particularly on the move of the CEO, Mr. Devlin Thomas. Now, Mr. Thomas, my understanding, he doesn't have an iota of management of any health sector whatsoever. So he is a nonplus for health. He is now the deputy chairman of the National Carnival Commission, and he has been the campaign manager, the PNM campaign manager for the Sama Barataria seat in the last election. So when he makes these moves across the board and interferes with the type of work that these frontline doctors have been doing for over a year, you are destabilizing the system. And when the Minister of Health, when asked about it, he mentioned that his management stops at the door of the institution, the door of the hospitals. And I'm saddened to, as well, when the Honorable Prime Minister almost simultaneously echoed the same sentiments. But isn't the appointment of heads of department and so on come from the board, the HR manager of the Regional Health Authority? Who appoints all of these personnel? They are appointed by the boards, and the boards are appointed by cabinet, and the Prime Minister is head of cabinet, and Minister Diyal Singh is a member of cabinet. So where does this responsibility lie? The responsibility lies with the government and with cabinet, and they should bring to account the regional health authorities, and particularly the Northwest Regional Health Authority in this matter. Well, there are, of course, other regional health authorities, the Southwest and the Northwest and the Eastern Regional Health Authority. Where is the meeting to bring all these regional health authorities together with in a meaningful manner to determine the way forward and the continuing management of the patients who are suffering with the COVID disease? We have had 408 deaths so far. The 408 deaths, the Trinidad Guardian, TNT reaches dark milestone. 18 more fatalities, 612 new cases in 24-hour reporting period, 8,444 active cases, 443 remain hospitalized. And another issue is that there are about 7,000 COVID positive patients at home, co-mingling with their families. And this is why it's not strange to see and to learn that all members of families become infected as a result of one member going back home and co-mingling. In fact, the other issues, the Newsday has Rowley slammed by Andrea Barrett protest organizers. Don't blame us for spite. The other one, the Daily Express, say it's shameless. Andrea's dad slams PM, shameless. Now, while these issues are being brought to the forefront, we have patients dying. Our death rate for the last, from May, is over 250 patients have died. 235 patients have died in May. How many of these had been in the intensive care unit? How many had been home? We heard that 16 had been home and died at home. Hundreds are finding difficulty in reaching the hospitals because of the weakened and the overburdened ambulance service. We have patients waiting in the tents at EWMSC and San Fernando Hospital and Port of Spain Hospital. Some patients are waiting 3-4 days on a chair in the tents, waiting for their results before they are moved to another setting because they have to get the results. So then you have video showing where patients are without oxygen. Where is the minister in all of that? When he said we have 924 beds, we have enough ventilators, we're importing ventilators. My understanding is that we have 10 ventilators functional at Mount Hope, that's at Coover, 5 at Cora, 5 in Arima, I don't know where, and I think 4 at Augustus Long Hospital. We have 24 ventilators for the entire country. So when the Honorable Leader of the Opposition raised some concerns recently about the question of ventilatory support, and is there any prioritization? We hope that there is no prioritization in terms of if you're old and so on and you do not resuscitate DNR. We hope that this does not occur. So and the other issue is the co-mingling of 7,000 COVID positive patients are at home, and therefore rest of the members of the family become infected as a result, and we know of many families becoming involved. So while this issue about transfer and rotation taking place at North Central Regional Health Authority, and it's an uncomfortable situation, we know that patients' management are at risk, and therefore we call upon the government and the Honorable Prime Minister to instruct his Minister of Health to meet with the relevant regional health authorities so that they can discuss in a forthright manner what is taking place and come to a logical conclusion and a determination to move forward. So while this is going on, we have patients losing their lives, but we have all determined that the only issue that we have to come and to grasp with is the question of the vaccination of the population. No matter what we do, how much we treat patients, how much issues there, the world has shown that once you vaccinate the patient, you're going to reduce the incidence of deaths. It has been shown in the United Kingdom, it has been shown in the United States, it's shown in Europe, it's shown in Australia, New Zealand. All these countries have continued to vaccinate their population. I think in the United States they now reach close to about 70 to 80% of their population vaccinated with the first dose. But here we are limping along. 1,500 to 2,000 a day out of the 100,000 vaccines that we got from the Sinopharm from China. How long is that going to take? Why not speed it up at more centers and give out at least 5,000 a day, so that could be given out in a 3-week period? And make sure, I want to recommend that the 100,000 Sinopharm vaccine be given to all first dose to 100,000 citizens. By doing that, you reduce the chances of being seriously ill or severely ill and hospitalization and demise. Now, where are we going to get the other 1.4 million vaccines? We urge the Prime Minister to keep on his toes, to work with COVAX, to work with the African Medical Support System, to work with countries who are willing to donate to the rest of the world. And we should be getting these vaccines as early as possible. The rate we're going, we will be in lockdown. We're now 15 months in lockdown. People are mentally agitated. We're going to go until mid next year. The other issue, there are lots of people in Trinidad who want to go abroad, get their 2 shots of vaccine and come back home. What is preventing them from doing that? Because the government has not set up a system as yet for that. So these people are asking the questions, and I'm only representing some of the people who have spoken to me. The other issue, being a medical doctor, and I have been a doctor for 45 years of my life, I've been a gynecologist for 40 years, a cancer specialist in gynecology from 1988, now nearly 32 years. And I have worked in about 18 hospitals around the world. I have taught almost 3,000 medical students. I have taught postgraduates. And I've trained at 4 universities around the world: Johns Hopkins, University of Toronto, University of London, UWI. So when I speak on health issues, I was former clinical dean of the medical school. I was an associate professor at the university. And also I served under Mr. Pandey during the time of Mrs. Bisessa being in the team then, the cabinet team. I was chairman of 2 of the 4 regional health authorities, the Northwest and the Central Regional Health Authority. So why don't you, Honorable Prime Minister, accept the invitation from the leader of the opposition for us to come together as a united team? I have indicated such already. Come together, we have some expertise, we have ability to lend you some ideas, we will help you solve some of the problems, but you're reluctant. I remember meeting with you, with Dr. Khan and Dr. Bodo, with the Honorable Leader of the Opposition leading our team, with you and 2 others in your team. And unfortunately, at the end of the meeting, Prime Minister, you were not nice in your comments about what transpired. You made us feel as though we had no experience, but I just told you my experience. Dr. Khan has about 35 years experience as a doctor. Dr. Bodo has about 35 years experience. And we have people on our team who could have be of help. There are scores of doctors outside there asking, Tim, why don't you speak to the minister and speak to X and Y? We're willing to help. We want to give our support, but the Honorable Prime Minister not making any effort to come together with the opposition. Countries around the world have come together. Why is it not happening in Trinidad and Tobago? So I leave that to the listening audience and members of the media so that we can answer any questions subsequent to this presentation. So the vaccine issue, the 7,000 members of the community who are positive and at home and infecting their families, the reluctance of Minister Diyal Singh to take responsibility for the management, what is happening in the ICUs, how many people are coming out alive out of those who have gone in, why are people dying at home, 16 people dying at home, why they're taking so long to reach the institutions, and all the little problems that are occurring which add up and surmount to negative patient care. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gopi Singh. And I have to apologize to the viewing audience and also to the Honourable Leader, the Honourable Kamla Prasad Bisessa. The recording issue and the technical issues just could not be solved at this time. It is really an unfortunate occurrence. But the announcement that the leader was making and was setting up was that the opposition will in Parliament be filing a motion of contempt and privilege against the Prime Minister, Keith Rowley, for his lies regarding both the spread of the disease and the COVID virus through the vigils, and also by falsely and knowingly, untruthfully claiming that the UNC had paid for and organized these events, which have been wrongly labeled as super spreader events. So when the Parliament resumes in June, a motion of contempt will be laid, and in the meanwhile a statement from the opposition leader will be sent to the media, will be made public in lieu of the announcement that unfortunately could not be aired today. We once again apologize for this. It is something that really was beyond our control. But we will open up the questions, we will open up the floor to questions from the media at this point. So if there are any questions, please let us know. I see we have one here from Prior Harry. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, good afternoon, Private Harry, ADP News. I thought that it was really would have been here, so we would have been able to answer the questions. So I hope that next time that may happen. My question is for Dr. Gopi Singh. Dr. Gopi Singh, you raised the issue about the doctors who have a problem with the rotation at the Kufa Hospital. I just wanted to find out what it is exactly that you're hoping for. Is it that the senior doctors return to the positions?
Yes, that is contained in their letter which they have written to the board of the NWRHA, asking for the reinstatement of these doctors back to the original position. That's one of the issues. That the board take immediate action to conduct an independent and transparent inquiry into why these physicians were removed and why the action was conducted in such a curious and undesirable manner. An apology to the physicians who were removed and an offer for immediate reinstatement as to reduce any adverse impact upon patient care. So I hope that answers the question, Prior.
Yeah. The other issue raised was the when people are tested, they have to go home and self-quarantine. And sometimes if they won't know whether they are positive or negative, and it's very difficult for people in some cases to self-isolate, because sometimes you only have one bathroom, maybe one bedroom. My question is therefore, what can be done? Because the biohealthcare system is already almost to the capacity. So is it that what are you suggesting then? When you get tested, how do you isolate?
You will remember, Prior, early on in the administration of this government, when we were questioning their inept testing ability, where they were deliberately not testing the amount of citizens in Trinidad, and they make it appear as though they had everything under control for election purposes. And when they began, so they went with that. They said they were number one, Oxford, according to the Oxford issue. Then they said that they would not allow private sector testing. Then they said that the only testing could be done at CAFA. So all of a sudden, testing was allowed for the private centers, the private labs. They said the hospitals would have been doing some testing, but the hospital never undertook any testing. The University of the West Indies Department of Pathology does some testing, and they do the testing for the variants on a randomized way. So that's why we don't have a lot of data to see how many variants we have and what is the quantity of variants. But it has come down to the fact that 70,000 tests have been done by the private sector labs. And at the beginning, the minister said, no, we don't want any private sector labs, but they have assisted the population. But from the government's labs, when the samples are taken in hospitals and in the tents, they are all mixed up. Some of them are lost. They take 6-7 days to even find the results. By that time, the patient is dead. By that time, the patient is sitting on a chair in the tent for 3 to 4 days without getting oxygen, without being administered the necessary pharmaceuticals to help them. And they have to stay there waiting on the results, sometimes no results, and sometimes it's unfortunate. So it shows the weakness of the management systems that are taking place. And this is where the government can do with some help. And they are refusing to take the help. They are an inept, I don't like to bring too much politics into this, but they're very inept in terms of what is happening. So you have spelled it out, the patients go home. How many patients can have 3 or 4 bedrooms in the house so that they can isolate? How many have more than one bathroom? How many have more than one kitchen? The utensils, they have to go out and get grocery and pharmaceuticals and so on. So they go back out and commingle with the rest of the population. The incubation period is 3 to 14 days. This is what is shown by WHO. So many people in their homes don't know whether they have COVID until they begin to get the symptoms. By that time, it has already multiplied to many, almost all in the household, and the senior ones some of them pass away, and unfortunately. So I hope this answers your question there.
Yes, I would just like to mention to the technician that we are able to link up live with the Leader of Opposition, voice only through the link, but we need to be testing. The link has been sent for her, and we can wait until to see if she can come on to make her contribution live at the moment. So when so we will be waiting a little bit to see if we can get the Leader of Opposition on live through voice. So we shall be waiting for her. But Dr. Gopi Singh, in terms of the epidemiological spread of the disease and the can you explain this to the viewers so they can understand in terms of the points of the Easter holiday as opposed to the vigil, just so people can understand what the issue is?
Well, I probably preempted that situation when I did a little bit of work and saw some graphs that were brought on by the Trinidad Guardian Wednesday, May 26, what caused TNT's latest COVID-19 surge. And here you have Easter holiday 2021. Before that, there was no major surge up to the end of March. Easter was on the 4th of April, and the incubation period is about 3 to 14 days. So 4th of April to 14 days, the 18th of April. So mid-April, you saw the spike. You see the spike, and the spike continues the whole of April, and almost 235 deaths for May, and about a significant amount of thousands who have been infected as a result. So the graphs which have been done by the Guardian, done Wednesday, May 26, shown what caused TNT's latest COVID-19 surge. And then there is obviously a scientific person in mathematics. Mr. Stephen Edwards had a graph shown on social media where you see the Easter weekend coming here, and this is the Easter weekend, and then the surge starting from 15th of April, and it began to climb, and you see, so it's all linked. It's unfortunate that the Honorable Prime Minister tries to say that the UNC paid for it and had all these people. When these marches were taking place in Port of Spain and throughout the country in support of no violence amongst women, both PNM supporters and UNC supporters and other supporters from other smaller parties were there. But you didn't see any spike. I think the end of those rallies were about the 18th of February. Subsequent to that, you didn't see any major spike in March. It's only subsequent to in April that the spike started. So it's as a result of what happened in Tobago. And look, the same thing happened to Tobago's active COVID-19 cases. The same spike taking place around the middle part of April. So when the government tries to remove itself from one of the causative factors, that's the Easter movement. And then permit me to say, here it is, you have a Prime Minister saying that 25,000 people went and 25,000 people come. But his Minister of Transport, who is a senator and who is a senior member of cabinet, making a statement contradicting the Prime Minister that 50,000 people went to Tobago and came back. So who is telling the untruth? And why has there not been some disciplinary action against the Minister of Transport, or why is there the Prime Minister continuing to make these statements to try and fool the population? It is not a worthy thing for the Honourable Prime Minister to come to try to make excuses for what really took place. So you are a cabinet member. Is either you dismiss the cabinet minister because he is telling the untruth, or if he is telling the truth, what happens to you as Prime Minister? So these are the questions the population want answered.
We have a question here from Anselm Gibbs.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you guys hear me loud and clear?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, quickly, I know Dr. Foxy just pointed out, right, that the Easter program is looking at. He's kind of relating it to what happened at Easter. I know in the past the opposition has, chastised the Prime Minister for hoping people, hoping people. So, Dr. Foxy, are you saying it's the Prime Minister, people went to the people and, whatever their transplanting does fight for, these people didn't make us properly, leading us back?
I didn't get it clearly.
I think, could you repeat that, please?
Could you?
Yeah, you said, yeah, just briefly.
I know in the past the opposition would have kind of chastised the Prime Minister about hoping people about their behavior in the COVID-19 numbers. But Dr. Foxy just pointed out that the spike, it looks like it's related to what happened over the Easter weekend. I know people are talking about this Tobago activity. So I'm trying to find out, is it a case now where you're saying that it's a behavior of people over the Tobago over the Easter weekend and that it's spike? Or is it a case that is the Prime Minister that encouraged people to behave a certain way leading to spike?
Yeah, well, you would expect that the population would have behaved in a significant way, in an orderly manner, and take the necessary precautions and observe the health regulations. We cannot fault the Prime Minister for that, but when he made the call that Tobago is the place to be, and he knows that people will assemble, and some of the behaviors might not be in keeping with what is desired.
The leader's on.
Right, thank you very much. The leader is on now.
Yeah, so I'm pleased to say that we've been able to link up live with the opposition leader, the Honourable Kamla Prasad Bisesa. Can we move to her, please? Yes, hello, Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, can you hear me?
Hello, good day to you. Thank you for allowing me to join up and to link up with you on this in this meeting. Earlier today, I did a pre-recording indicating that the opposition intends to file a motion of contempt, a privilege motion, with respect to the statements the Prime Minister made on Monday in the Parliament when he was winding up the debate in the House on the motion about taking note of the presidential statement, which specified the reasons for the declaration of a state of emergency. The Prime Minister then made statements to the effect that the vigils held with respect to the late Andrea Barrett, that those vigils were organized by the UNC, they were paid for by the UNC, and the UNC provided transport. Now, the Prime Minister also said that these vigils had gatherings of thousands of people every night. I want to categorically state that the UNC did not pay, the opposition did not pay, the opposition did not organize these vigils. Yes, some may have attended it, but so did the Attorney General. Persons who attended were both UNC and they were not UNC, and they were also PNM. So they were persons of all walks of life who were outraged and who were really hurting as to what had happened with Andrea Barrett. And then it became also with Ashanti Rally and so many other women who were victims of violence. So in the Parliament, all MPs have parliamentary privilege, that is freedom of speech. But with responsibility comes with freedom and privilege comes great responsibility, so that all members in their contributions to the Parliament are protected from being sued outside of the Parliament for defamation. But the Parliament stand in all member recklessly and deliberately and knowingly misleads the House, in other words, in the local language, tells lies in the Parliament. So that is a remedy that is open to us to bring the Prime Minister to account using the standing orders of the Parliament. And why do I say that we are of respectful view that the Prime Minister breached the parliamentary rules by making these erroneous statements? There are two elements that we must fill in bringing such a motion and improving such a motion. One, it must be that the fact is indeed a fact, that the statement made is indeed a fact. And there is no dispute that the statement is erroneous in the factual content, given all the data that others have provided, that the Ministry of Health has provided. And secondly, that the statement must have been done knowingly, deliberately. It is our respectful view that the Prime Minister deliberately misled the Parliament, because he knew or ought to have known that those statements were wrong, that they were erroneous, they were false. And how would he have known? He would have known because he attended all the health briefings, the majority of health briefings. He was present when all the experts gave the various statistics, the data, the statistics about the rates of infections, the number of deaths, and so on. So the Prime Minister knew and ought to have known. And I just heard a question about the issue to do. Because of that, I'm saying we will be filing the motion in the Parliament, a motion of contempt, a privilege motion, with respect to statements made by the Prime Minister in the debate on Monday. The second point I want to make has to do with what was being discussed before I came on the live, and that had to do with the Prime Minister telling people to come to Tobago. Tobago is open for business. Not only did that happen, the government also put on extra flights for people to go to Tobago. The government also put extra ferry sailing so that they wanted people in mass numbers to go. And in retrospect now, that would have been reckless. And should the Prime Minister really believe that the vigils caused the spike, then why did you open up the place in Tobago for business? Why did you proceed to put on more flights? Why did you go ahead to encourage people? And Dr. Hines himself said that the gatherings for Easter were one of the factors in the spike in deaths and in the spike with respect to the infection. So I just want to make these few points, and I'm open to any questions you may want to raise.
Open the floor to the media if they have any questions for the Leader of Opposition or Mr. Gopi Singh, Dr. Gopi Singh. I know we do have a question that has been sent in via WhatsApp, and then we have Mr. Priya Bihari. Let me take the WhatsApp question, and then we have two more questions on Zoom. The WhatsApp question is, can the Minister give the number of persons who have traveled to Tobago and were tested positive for COVID-19 during the Easter vacation? I'm wondering if
Well, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition was on that point, but if I'm to just put in a little 2 pence there, the records are there. You can't go to Tobago like Watson Duke to try and swim. You either go by air or you go by sea. And the government has that information available to them. So they must tell the population how many people went to Tobago around the Easter time by air and how many by sea. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition spoke about the increase in the number of flights that they put on. So that information is available from Caribbean Airlines and from the Port Authority, both in Trinidad and Tobago. Absolutely. And it will put a lie to what, unfortunately, the Honourable Prime Minister has been talking about 25,000. Give us the facts and the figures and let the population judge for themselves.
All right. Honourable Leader, is there any thing you might like to add to this?
Sure. There's a second aspect, if I heard correctly. It was how many of these persons who traveled would have tested positive for COVID. Well, again, that will be within the bosom of the government. But it goes further. At no point have we been doing sufficient testing. From day one, we have been really, really backwards in the world, and indeed even more so now. More tests are being done, but we are still way down on the scale, on the totem pole, when it comes to the number of tests. So even if we say how many out of that 50,000 that Rohan Sinan said traveled between Trinidad and Tobago during that period, I mean, clearly they have not tested 50,000 people. So it would be very difficult to answer the question how many of the travelers were tested positive, because all those travelers would not have been tested.
Question here from Priya Bihari, AZP News. Priya?
Hi, good afternoon again, Private Harry, AZP News. I just have a question for Mrs. Basari-Sessa concerning the no confidence motion. It is more than likely that will be defeated in the lower house because, of course, the government has the majority. What then, do you think that it is still prudent that you file such a motion?
Hello? Hello?
Hello. Can you
Yes,
hear?
Good, I'm not hearing properly. Can you repeat the question from Priya, please?
Yes, I will summarize his question. His question is, given the numbers in the Parliament, it is virtually guaranteed to lose the motion, that is, and so is it prudent to continue with this motion knowing what will happen in the Parliament?
Yes, Priya is correct in terms of motions brought against the government, that the government has the numbers. But what these motions allow to happen is that facts can be put on the table, the reality of the situation can be put on the table in the Parliament and on the record in Hansard. So whilst it is that the votes may be taken away and in favor of the government, there is merit in raising matters of urgent importance. There is merit in raising matters of touch and concern, the conduct of leadership, the conduct of the business of the nation, and therefore it is within our remit. The Parliament, the standing orders, offers this remedy as the way to raise matters such as this. Now, I want to make it clear, this is not in the nature of a motion of no confidence. It is a motion of contempt. And what happens when it is filed, the Speaker will analyze it, consider it, and it then falls within the remit of the Speaker to decide whether it should be sent to what is known as the Privileges Committee of the House of Representatives. And there they will deliberate on it, make decisions. Again, the votes will be in the favor of the government. But I make the point, it gives the opportunity to advocate and to bring to the forefront all the issues pertaining to the matter being discussed.
And we'll take this as the last question. Anselm Gibbs.
Yes, hi. This question is for the opposition leader. Mr. Professor, have you taken the COVID-19 vaccine? If you have, how long have you taken it, and what kind of effects have you had since taking it, if you did take it?
Honorable Leader, did you hear the question? Hello?
Yes, can you please repeat the question? We did.
The question was whether you have taken the COVID-19 vaccine, and if so, what has been your experience with it?
Well, first of all, I did a PCR test very recently. That test came up negative. I took the view, and whilst I urge people, the only answer is with the vaccines, I took the view that just because I hold a position in public life, that I should not be the first one out there taking the test. My husband took the vaccine because he has the comorbidities, and he has been fine since taking the vaccine.
All right. So if there are no further questions, we'd like to thank you for attending. We apologize for the technical problems, but we are very pleased that we were able to get the Leader of Opposition attending. And we thank you once again. Have a very good afternoon and be safe.